Hello and welcome to LoveWorkLife Training Academy, conducting a sales call part 2. Guys and girls, thank you very much for joining us. Today has been or will be an extremely busy webinar. There is lots of people signed up to the webinar, which is great news. So we need to make sure that get everybody on first and foremost. As we know, today is part 2 of conducting a sales call, the basics. So as people start to log in, I want to do is the usual shout out for the people that are here. There's lots and lots of people on. Again, today will be the biggest attendance that we've had so far in the last 14, 15 weeks, which is awesome. So I want to thank everybody for that first and foremost. So thanks a lot to King Recruit, Autograph, Westray, ARV, TN Recruit, The One Group, Change Recruitment, Partap, CRA Consulting, PG Recruitment, Mayor Stevens, Connections, Star Recruit, TaylorMade, Impact, Cloud-Based, Enable, the Contract Doctor, Helm, Premier, Exact Sourcing, TaylorMade, Exploris Recruitment, GS Recruitment, Ignata, Taste Hospitality, Experis, Met Marketing, Farrington, Aventus Legal, JSL, Invictus, Hall Recruitment, Athwell, TTS 24/7, G2 Group, Bonbon Recruitment, and I think that's where the list stopped and starts. So lots and lots of people on today, which is really, really good news. So as people start to log in, let's have a very, very quick recap for those that were here last week when we started off our recruitment training on the sales call. Remember, we started off and looked at the actual format that we wanted to do and how we sort of set our sales call up. We wanted that really strong opening benefit statement, a really strong fact find, then confirm your understanding, then sell your solution, and then close at the end of that. What we covered hugely last week was that opening benefit statement and how important that first 30 seconds is to really make an impact with your client. We need to understand then how important the fact find was, because it's the fact find that makes it there. So yes, Judge Recruitment, you're here. Sorry, Natalie, I didn't see you on there. We need to make sure that how important that fact find is, because it's the fact find that we're going to use all that data from to ensure that when we match our sale up, we match it properly, match it back against the shopping list that we have, and we work from there. We then talked about confirming our understanding. Again, going back over what we just talked about to ensure that our client and ourselves had the best possible opportunity to actually fill the position that we're looking for. So as we move into this week now is the most important part about this sales call, because I think that sometimes when we start to look at the sales call, we need to look at it in a very simple way. We need to look at how we connect the dots together and how we pull things back together. And this is where I've sort of discovered the difference between poor recruiters, average recruiters, good recruiters, and those that are just simply outstanding at recruitment. There's a very big difference in the quality of the fact find that people do, and a very big difference in the quality of the actual sales solution that they provide to their client. And so what we're trying to do today is put those two dots together, connect them together, so we understand why people do this and why a sales call is, if you do a proper sales call, isn't a 20-minute sales call. It should be an hour plus. It should be a long call, because we should be getting all the benefits, and it's about working with the client to ensure we get that. So today's objective is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at selling your solution, features, advantages, and benefits, how you can affect the call by using words and tone, plan your close, and closing the call with actions. There's an awful lot that we want to go through today. We want to sort of talk about everything that we've got, and we want to then link it all back. So we need to make sure that everyone is doing the right things. And when people are rushed, and this is the big thing, when people are rushed or people generally don't know what they're selling, this side of the sale is what falls down. This side of the sale is all about creating value. So we've got to start to think about the value that we want to create with ourselves and with our client. So selling your solution comes simple, okay? We now understand what our clients' likes and dislikes. We now have fully recapped with our clients' needs and highlighted their issues when we've gone through understanding their issues and we've gone through establishing where we are with them. What we've actually started to create, if we think about that, we've created buying signals. We're listening to what the client's telling us, and he's giving us buying signals that we need to match our service against. We need to put our service against that. So poor recruiters, what they do at this stage, rather than actually try ignite the client and really warm the client up, they go straight into selling their solution, straight into selling their services and what they've got. And what poor recruiters do is they only use features. They don't use the full opportunity or the full toolkit that they've got, which is features, advantages, and benefits. So you've got to, as a great recruiter, use features, advantages, and benefits so the client understands your service and the value that you're getting. As I said, jumping directly into your sale without actually lighting the fire under the client, the fire of desire and the need and want to buy your services, is really important. So understanding your company's USPs is paramount to your sale. So the start of creating value, this is how we stop competing in that feeding frenzy of recruitment, where you're competing with others, undercutting their capabilities, undercutting their price. You're having to trade part of your service. It's where your client treats you as something that they've sort of stepped in rather than someone of true value. So yes, our call might take longer, but if we truly build the fire under the client, and we need to build that fire, then the client's going to start to tell you what you need to sell against. So I always start my sales of my solution in a very simple way. Mr. or Mrs. Client, let me tell you how we work and how we're going to address some of your issues that you have highlighted, and how I've seen similar things with some of my other clients and how I've cured them for them and how I can help you. I really start to emphasize now the you, because it's the person that I'm selling to. I want to ignite that person's desire. I want to really light a fire under them, so when I come to sell my solution, they are absolutely watering at the mouth with what solution I have for them. So I start to move on to start to looking at selling my solution and truly lighting that fire. You know what your clients dislike about recruitment. How? Because we've just gone through a fact find and they should have told you what they do. So we need to state those things and give them real life scenarios as part of your desire builder there. I always think about clients and what they've said to me. Things such as, you said you wasted a lot of time at interviewing candidates that after 2 minutes you didn't want to interview any longer. In fact, you wanted to kill them because they weren't right for your business, but you didn't want to be rude. So you spent another hour with that candidate, wasting your time. And a number of clients have sort of said, how do you get around that? Well, now we can get around that by using our USPs, demonstrating our value. One of our values could be, and one of our USPs could be, video technology. Using video technology and presenting a CV in video style as well as hard style means that the client gets an opportunity to see that candidate. So we can sell that as a feature and a benefit. A feature of our exclusive service or our retained service is that we provide you with a video CV of the candidate, which means you can see the candidate, and therefore if you instantly get that gut feeling that you don't like that candidate for whatever reason, Mr. Client, you can reject the CV and therefore not waste time interviewing it, which gives him the feature, the advantage, and the benefit to him. We need to keep working very hard on demonstrating value. Another things that I come across all the time when we speak to clients is they state that they have an attrition issue. And we state that they've got problems with turnover of staff and how you're going to cure that. And again, we can look at that in a very simple way, because clients hire on skills, but in the main, fire on behaviors. So again, I would use a real life example of when I've worked with a client, and I would state that Mr. Client, what you're saying to me is that at the moment you've got an attrition issue because you're hiring on skills, but in the main you're firing on behaviors. Again, I see a lot of this. In fact, I've been working with a client, and 18 months ago, we had the same conversation that we're having here today. And I started working with them on our retain model, which includes behavioral matching, where we match your role to your candidate. And this reduces your time to hire. It reduces the number of candidates that you see and the candidates that you're interviewing. Because we behaviorally match the candidate against your role, we can say that your client stays longer. In fact, we've done research on our database, and it says that the people that use our retained service have a retention of 96% in the first year, which means you've got a better opportunity of finding the right candidate, and that candidate's going to stay, which is going to save you more time because you're going to spend less time recruiting. You'll be able to induct the candidate quicker because they'll be more in line with your business, and you'll have the confidence of developing that client candidate further, knowing full well they'll stay for longer. So again, I'm using my features, my advantages, and my benefits to my client to whet their appetite. So to me, it's all about now using features and advantages and benefits and using them properly and adding them real-time examples constantly to our client, so our client can see where we have been doing this in the past. They can see where we've had success, and if we start giving quantifiable evidence of our success to our client, it starts to whet their appetite. It starts to increase their desire to buy from us, and once we start to increase their desire to buy from us, everything that we say to them must link back to that fact find. So in that fact find where we have highlighted their issues, we need to pinpoint back. So bear in mind at this point, not once have I started to sell my solutions. What I'm doing is highlighting where parts of my solutions and parts of my recruitment process is now matching their needs. Now, it could be something they really like, and it could be something that they dislike. What I'm doing is I'm giving them examples constantly of what I've done with other people within the marketplace, demonstrating my capabilities. So it's really important that we understand that and we start to drive that into our sale more and more. And features, advantages, and benefits is where this really makes a difference. And I always say, why do poor or average recruiters skip these? They're skipping the actual firelighting process that ignites the desire in the client to actually buy from you. And when I go into clients and start to speak to people about why this isn't happening, I'm speaking to managers, some will say, well, they've never been taught it. Well, that's fair enough. They need to be taught it. Some managers will say, it's because my people are lazy. So is it the people are lazy, or is it the management that's lazy because they haven't actually instilled that into it? Some people are scared to really push their features, advantages, and benefits because they don't understand what it actually does at the other end, the person receiving that conversation, and how it ignites the fire to want to buy. Some people just don't simply have the confidence and want to do that. And some people are actually under pressure to hit meaningless KPIs. And therefore, to them, it's all about getting through that sale really quickly. That quick, get on to the next call because I've been pushed on a KPI to actually deliver something on the KPI. So features are about your business, means nothing to a client unless that benefit is obvious and understood. So we've got to make sure that we have a true understanding, because if a client has no understanding of our value and the meaning of value, then the only value that they'll be able to ascertain from you is when you give a price. And if you're just giving price as value, then you're going to get your price driven down. So we need to match our features, advantages, and benefits to our clients' needs. We've got to start to think that lots of recruitment agencies love completing in that frenzied marketplace, that frenzied food fight for there. And I've classed it last week with a client as that bloodbath of recruitment, that we're all fighting in that area, chipping at each other, trying to outstrip each other. Well, actually, if we start to stop and think, what can I do that's different to my competition? First of all, I've got to think about how I sell my solution to my client. If I sell it in a more meaningful way that is all about value, then I start to step out of that feeding frenzy and step out of that bloodbath into clear water where I have very little competition. So we've got to make sure we're doing that, because what we don't want a client to do is, oh, I've just seen XYZ agency, work with this job with us as well, and we've given that out, etc., etc. We need to make sure that we're not competing with other people. Okay, I don't want to be having to shave off my fee, etc. And the last thing I want to do is my consultants coming back to me and saying, oh, I've just won this business because I know they're competing with XYZ agency, so I've shaved some of my fee off so we can work with them exclusively. Only to 2 days later, normally what you find is that agency is still working the job anyway, and we've shaved our fee so we can get that job exclusively. And I always worry about agencies that shave their fee for exclusivity. So what you're saying is that your bog standard fee is at, let's say, 20%, but you're going to give your exclusive fee, which is a better all-round service, but you're going to give that at 15%. Just doesn't make any sense. You're giving more value, but you're taking away your fee. Surely it should be the other way round. So we've got to start to think about that and how we sell to our clients. We need to make sure that everybody is using features, advantages, benefit properly and not just paying lip service to them. If you want to be a brilliant recruiter, you have to use features, advantages, and benefits. So things such as we supply candidates from a passive marketplace, we interview all candidates before submitting them, is usually what an agent will say to them who is poor. But what does that actually mean to the client? So we've got to start thinking now truly about the advantages that we want to give. So the question is always, what is an advantage? What does an advantage actually do? So it's the advantage that is often forgotten. The advantage explains what the feature means to the client. I only work with candidates we have interviewed. We interview each candidate to ensure they have not heard about your vacancy, that they have the correct skill set for your position, and they are within your salary banding, which means the candidate will be suitable for your role. We then start to work on their skill set and understanding their skill set to ensure that they can technically do their role. So can they and will they be able to do their role? I also want to make sure from a GDPR point of view that I'm compliant with my candidate and I'm not sending data that hasn't been sent somewhere already. So I need to make sure that I'm doing that. So I want to sell the advantage to my client. So you're going to get a candidate that knows nothing about you before, hasn't been submitted to you before, and is working with us exclusively. The client knows then that we've interviewed the candidate face to face. They see the advantage of that. They see the benefit of that. So we've got to make sure that constantly when we're selling these, that an advantage only comes to life once the benefit to the client is fully understood. And if you want is to really think about that, if the client fully understands what we're doing, then all of a sudden their desire to buy is much higher. So when we start to match and sell your solution, it's really interesting. The question is, what is the benefit? The benefit will give the client the appetite to buy your solution. So if you've already gone in and started to sell your solution without creating the appetite to buy your solution, then that's when you start to get clients pushing down at your fee, pushing down at your margins, etc. Why? Because that's the only part that they see as benefit. So we need to start to think about selling the solutions, features, advantage, and the benefit. The benefit to the client makes the feature and the advantage come to life for the client. It demonstrates what the benefit will do for them. The benefit gives the client the reason to buy. And there are simply 5 reasons why a client would really want to buy from you. And these 5 reasons are simply, they want to save time. They want to be able to go and do their job, what they are paid to do. They're not paid to recruit in the main, so they want to get back to doing their job. They don't want to waste their time looking at CVs that do not match. They don't want to waste their time looking at interviewing candidates that aren't a fit for their job. They want to do their job. They want to think about saving money. Saving money isn't just about the cost of recruitment of that process. Saving money is also about, can you reduce their attrition rate? Can you provide them a person that will give them more benefit, i.e. better skilled person coming into the business? Can you provide someone that's going to stay there longer, therefore not have to recruit as often? All about that is all about your value. If you can create that type of value and you can quantify that by using the stats that you've scraped from your database about the placements that you've made, so you should realize out of the candidates that you've placed last year, how many of them are still in the job after 12 months? How many are still in the job after 24 months? And if you've got that data and you can start to say, actually, Mr. Client, over a year, 96% of our candidates stay for a year. Over the 2-year period, looking at all the candidates that we've placed, 93 are still in place after 2 years. Wow, what a great stat to give to a client that sells the value of your service, that 93% of your clients are, your candidates are still in service with the clients you placed them after 2 years. Those stats I've got is from a client that I've worked with before, and we evaluated their business, and that's what they could give back to their clients. That saves the client money. It saves the client time. It saves the client hassle. So you start to now think about that from a client's point of view. We want to maintain productivity for the client. So again, by reducing their attrition rate, we increase their productivity because they're not having to retrain people. So again, these are all cost-effective ways of working with a client and selling our solution to our client. So when we start to think about benefits, these 4 things are things that we need to have a direct link to, because this is all about money, all about time, and all about their job. Once we give them that type of evidence, we are giving them peace of mind. And think about what we talk about at the moment, how stressed people get when they come to recruitment, how stressed they get if they're not able to deliver a project, how stressed they get if they think that their staff is there. And what we've got to remember, and what we've got to keep remembering, I think we've got to change hugely. Most people in the recruitment marketplace will still state that every placement is a distressed placement. The client is in distress, that's why they've come out to find a new person. Well, I've news for you, they're not distressed placements. Only a very small percentage will be distressed placements. They'll have planned their recruitment over the next 12 months, so they'll know when they're bringing people in. It's only a distressed placement if somebody's left or all of a sudden they're falling behind on their projects. So we've got to start to think about what we're doing. So if we can sell a longer solution to our client over a longer period of time, it again gives them peace of mind. And peace of mind is really important, because peace of mind means the client can go away, give you that role exclusively or retained, and think, I know that role is going to be filled, because the features, advantages, and benefits that they've been doing with other clients and how they've described what they're going to do with me gives me that peace of mind and that desire that I can trust these people with my recruitment. And that is what this sell is all about. So again, we still haven't walked or moved into selling our service, because we don't want to sell our service yet until we've whet the appetite of the client enough to want to buy. Another thing that I found a very big difference between those that excel at recruitment and those that don't. And the question I always ask people is, how do you like the client to perceive you? And it's a very important part. You might believe that you are the best recruiter in the marketplace. That's your perception of how good your skills are. What I'm asking you is to understand what the client's perception is of you and your skills and your agency, because it's not your perception that counts. It's the client's perception, the candidate's perception of you that counts. So you've got to make sure that perception becomes reality. So if your perception is about you chasing money and you getting a job just because you want to get a job on, then guess what? That's how the client will see that, and that's how the client will perceive that. Because what we seem to forget is that when we are speaking to clients and speaking to candidates, 55% of that conversation is interpreted from our body language alone. So most of the conversation is via our body language. So if we're saying one thing and our body language is saying another, then we're in problems. The second part of the conversation is about the tones that we use. So again, if the tones that we use aren't selling professionalism, aren't selling trust, aren't creating value, then it doesn't matter what words we use, which is the smallest part of the of a conversation, because the client on the biggest parts isn't going to believe us. So we need to make sure that as we start to talk about and use our tone, use our language, how we'd like a client to perceive us, if we want to be perceived as an expert in our niche or in their niche, then we need to be talking their language. We need to be talking their terminology. We need to be understanding their marketplace. If we can understand their marketplace and we can talk about their marketplace fluently, then all of a sudden, we are now becoming an expert. If they've seen our marketing, then all of a sudden, all that marketing is now linking into making this call even stronger. If we are out there in the marketplace an awful lot and people are talking about us, and the biggest person that can talk about you and sell your service to your client are candidates. So if candidates come into your marketplace and talk to the client and say, I've dealt with XYZ agency, they were brilliant, then again, it's affirmation of your skills. So you need to be seen as a professional. So as a professional, it's how you behave and how you interact with your market, and that reflects on your company standards and demonstrates the value to your client and your candidates that you give. You need to be seen as a minimum as credible, but what we're actually trying to get to is to become the key person of influence in the marketplace. And I've just spoken to, I spoke at 11 o'clock to a client, and I came off the phone at about 10 past 12. And we were talking about what they were doing in the marketplace. And they work in a very small marketplace. There's 2 or 3 agencies in the same area, in the same niche. And they've started to do various different things within that marketplace that is making them the key person of influence in the marketplace. And they said once they've started to do this, what they found is that clients that they hadn't worked with before are now turning up at some of their trade exhibitions that they're doing, some of their webinars that they're doing, some of their podcasts that they're doing. Now what they're also finding is that even through lockdown, these clients are now approaching them about work because they are the influencer in the marketplace. They seem to be professional out there. They're doing the right things. So it's important that they do that, because what all those things are doing constantly for our client is creating value for money. You're offering value for money. What we've done before this, by linking the dots and talking about what they like and dislike about recruitment, what they're looking for and what they haven't done, and then matching that to the things that we've done in the past with other clients, it's telling the client about our knowledge. It's demonstrating our knowledge to the client of what we know about the marketplace and key people in the marketplace that we're working with. So we need to make sure that we're constantly reminding our client of that. And you're looking at the problems that your client has, the issues that we have, we're replicating those problems that they've had with other clients, and we're then telling them how we've solved those problems with those other clients. So we want to make sure that we're constantly able to solve their problems and give their problems a view. So before I start talking about my recruitment solution, I'm already demonstrating my problem-solving capabilities with other people. We have to be honest and we have to be reliable to our clients, okay? Recruiters have a bad reputation. We don't need to prove to clients that we are the stereotypical recruiter. We need to prove that we are different. So what you'll say you're going to do and do it when you say you're going to do it is really important. Keeping the client up to date with what's going on and giving the client truly honest feedback is really important. I always say, Do not sugarcoat things with clients. Be truthful and be honest. Even if it's to the detriment to you, be truthful and honest, because that starts to create trust. And trust is very much entrenched in that value proposition. Once you start to trust somebody, okay, you start to see value, then trust starts to grow. Trust creates more value. So we need to make sure that we never sugarcoat things. So if you do something wrong, tell them they're doing something wrong. If they're doing something that's not quite right for the marketplace, tell them they're doing something that's right. So we have to be very positive in our language. We have to use that in there. And obviously we need to be confident all the way through this process. And confidence goes two ways. Confidence absolutely goes two ways. So if you're feeling really confident in what you're doing, guess what? You're going to create confidence in your client. And the client feels confident about you being able to service their need and cure their issues, then they will buy your service. So as we're starting to sell now, we're starting to give ideas of what we've done in the past and how we can solve the client's problems. What we should be doing during this period of time is listening to what the client's saying, listening to how the client is reacting to what we're saying. And I'm now preparing my mindset about my better service offering, whether it's a digital process, a behavioral focus, my client marketing, whether it's video, whether it's onboarding, whether it's AI, whether it's my recruitment services. I'm starting to think about what my services would look like for this client. What would they buy? What would make them beneficial to them? What would the value to them? So I'm already prepping these things in mind already. I want to get these things out into the client's mind. So I'm already pre-setting my opportunity to sell my services. I'm already preempting what I think my client is going to say to me about my services, because I'm already establishing where I've been successful and how I've helped other people where they are having issues or where they are failing or where they want to compete more with clients. So I'm now compartmentalizing. Does this client want a contingency service? Does he want an exclusive service? Do they want a retained service? Or have I got an opportunity to sell massive recruitment services to them? Or is there an alternative to that? What alternatives can I offer? Again, I was talking to a client on Friday, and we were talking about doing an employee value survey with their employees as they come back from furlough into their markets. And we started to talk about other offerings. And I said, every client should be doing this. Not every recruitment agency, every client in the marketplace, every business in the marketplace should be doing this. Why aren't you thinking about offering this out to your clients? What an extra service that you could give them. What does that give you? It gives you a massive amount of data that you can start to use about where the client's strong, where the client's weak. And guess what? You can now go in there and help them as an advisor to help them improve their recruitment process to increase the quality of the staff that they are going to recruit. So we've got to look at the services and compartmentalize them out before we start to sell them. We've got to think about the perceived value. Have I got to a point now where the client has seen enough value that they want to buy? I want to make sure that my client is absolutely right. Do they see the value in how I deal with my candidates and how I bring the candidates to them? Can they understand what that means to them short term, medium term, and long term? So I've spent an awful long time now setting up my pitch. I want to set my pitch up to make sure that I win. So it's very, very simple in pitch. I've now set all the things up. So I now want to change how I pitch. The first change is I've set my scene. I've been giving really good ideas of what I've done with other people within the marketplace, demonstrating my value and demonstrating my capabilities. But I'm going to change how I pitch, because usually now what we do is we give all our recruitment services out in one go and then say, and this is my fee. And we chuck a fee in there, whatever we see fit for that. But we haven't really compartmentalized our sale whatsoever. So therefore, we need to start to compartmentalize, and that means understanding your USPs and have them in defined blocks. Now, whether you call that contingency, exclusive, retained, recruitment services, gold, silver, bronze, ABC, recruitment light, recruitment heavy, whatever it be, then we start to look at it from there and we start to work on there. Because what we want to do when we pitch in blocks and we talk about each individual service, and we'll talk about this slightly later on, each individual service, this is my contingency service. So if you were looking at this type of recruitment, Mr. Client, that is what you would type receive. But you're talking about this type of recruitment, Mr. Client, and this is what we've talked about through it beforehand and what you really sort of engaged with. I expect this to be exclusive or retained, etc. Because what I want to do is I want to talk to my client and I want my client to decide the strategy before I give a price. If I now understand what the strategy the client desires, now I can price accordingly. So I've got to think about this pitching in blocks and making the client decide my strategy. So I'm going to start to think, here are 4 simple strategies. Anyone can take this and look at this, freeze the video, write it down, copy it, okay, but then add your in. So you can start to Mr. Client. So Mr. Client, what we've been talking about, these are my 4 strategies for recruitment. We do a contingency, exclusive, and retained. I think actually that what you need to be talking about is more retained. Our contingency is we will take a strong job specification, do our database search, put it out on adverts, CV vetting, and then prepare a CV for you, and then manage the interview. But you want more than that from what you're saying, because where you're saying that you have had high attrition, it's because you haven't really got a really good interview process and you spend too much time interviewing candidates that are poor. So our exclusive business gives you contingency, plus it gives you, we'll market out to your candidates a marketing pack. We will create a passive market search of the candidates that are already on our database, and then we'll start to headhunt from those people. Every candidate we see, we will do a face-to-face vetting. So we will face-to-face them interview normally before they get onto our database. Now we're going to do a face-to-face vetting with them purely about your job. So we understand that they can and they will be able to do the job. You'll receive from us a CV and a video interview. So now what I'm doing is I'm now matching that. So what you said is you spend a lot of time interviewing candidates that aren't right. This will start to reduce that from there. We will also do counter offer management, etc., etc. You said, Mr. Client, that you had a lot of problems with retention. What we'll do is a retained recruitment service. What that is contingency and exclusive together. You'll get a dedicated recruitment team, but we will do behavioral profiling. That behavioral profiling, as we said, will give you a far better opportunity to retain your staff longer, reducing your cost of recruitment. And I'd go through these services, so on and so on and so on. And what I've always got to think in my mind is, as I go through these services, the first service, contingency, is free. I'm in mass competition. I've got little or low percentage chance of placing people on a contingency basis. The contingency market in the UK on average on perm is they place 2 out of 10 placements that they take on. And if they're taking 2 out of 10 placements that they take on, wow, that means 80% of their time is wasted. And if they're wasting 80% of their time, then that means what could they do with that time? You talk about exclusive and you start to generate exclusive business. That's exclusive to you. It's still free, but you've got a better opportunity of actually placing those people. Retained, and I was speaking again early on this week to a client that does 100% retained placements. They place 98% of all their jobs, but they are paid part up front for that. So we have to make sure that when we do that, we do the right things and we pitch in the right way. Recruitment services, when we know how much recruitment's going on and we can start to add that, and that's a paid service over a period of time, and that's maybe a bigger sell, but it's worth mentioning and sowing the seed on every sale that you do. So once I get to the end of my pitch, I'm going to say, so what service suits you best, Mr. Client? And I'm going to listen to them say, well, I really like the retained, or I really like the exclusive. Good. So that we can start to work on what they want, and then I give my price. For the retained service, Mr. Client, it is bong. Whatever percentage you agree, 25%, 30%, whatever you see fit, I'm going to push that service in, because I've now created the value and I've linked my value back to my client's needs, back to my client's issues. I've shown him how I'm going to solve my issues, and now I'm going to push. If you get a client that doesn't think that you've provided value, they will more than likely try and instantly push you down to contingency, say 25%, all my other agencies work at 15%. Fine. Absolutely fine. It's an objection, which we'll cover up later about how we can cover objections, but it's an objection. What we need to be saying is, Mr. Client, I understand exactly what you're saying, but we've just spent an hour almost talking about the problems with recruitment. Your problem is your contingency recruitment is in that way, and that's what's causing you the problem. So if you want to carry on in contingency recruitment, that's absolutely fine, but you're going to have the same issues all the way through. So if you don't want to pay 25%, what part of my service do you want me to remove to meet your required fee? So you can start to see now, we can start to now take things away from the client because we've whetted their appetite. And it's almost like that kid in the sweet shop. What sweets do you want? What sweets do you want? I want that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, Dad. Great. Well, that all adds up to about 15 quid, son. Here's 10p. Get what you want. You know? So all of a sudden, we want to create the appetite and whet the appetite, but give the solution. If you've given true value, the difference between 15 and 20% or 20% and 25% when it comes down to monetary terms is immaterial. Because once you start to weigh up the value of somebody leaving a business and the cost of replacing it, it's far more than their recruitment fee that they're going to be paying. And we need to remind them of those type of things all the way through. So pitching is about linking all the way through, tugging at the client's heartstrings constantly to ensure that you've increased that appetite and desire to buy. What we should be thinking about is using quantifiable evidence if we're having a position where we have to now negotiate with the client. And so using quantifiable evidence, if you're mining your data properly off your database, you know what type of requirements and what percentage fill rate of those requirements happen. So you might be thinking this client is trying to push me very hard on type D, but I know on type D I get a 90% fill rate. So maybe I will negotiate with him and drop him down. I'm working with a client on type A client. I know I only fill 10% of those requirements. So I'm going to push really hard to stick where I want to be, because it's going to be a really hard job to find those candidates. But what I can do now, I can start to use this data to change the client's mind, using your knowledge and the success rate and failure rates of the client to guide them to a better recruitment performance all round. If you're already working with clients who recruit the same type of people and you know what's happening, then you can talk to that to the client. So again, you can talk about improving the client's journey from a recruitment point of view to all parties. You can start to think about the quality of service and the better quality of candidate you get by doing certain things. So I've seen clients bounce from being pitched, retained, to almost adamant that they want to have a contingency service, only once they understand it to come back to be retained, because they haven't understood the value. And that's when I've listened to consultants who genuinely don't match that first part of the sale, that first part of telling people what you do and how you've done it and who you've done it with in the past to match the client's issues. They've missed that out and they've jumped straight into the sale. The client has missed the value. So if the client doesn't understand the value of your service, it's because you haven't sold it well enough. So we've got to really work hard on that value. So be thinking, Is your client listening to your advice? Are they changing their processes based on your expert analysis? Or are they sticking a gun to your head and saying, no, I want to work at this price? Because if they're sticking a gun to your head, that gun is holding you hostage to their poor processes, to their limited chance of success. So why are you being held hostage to a limited chance of success? Run away. Run away to live to fight a better day, and keep running from those type of clients. Why be held hostage? There's lots of better clients out there. So remember, you need to talk about a place to, you need to talk about your success in the past with other clients and what you've done. You need to talk about the fill rates of why you've done that and how you've done that. You need to make sure that you fill those jobs properly. So talk about the types of jobs that they want and why they want them in that way. So we've got to work really hard at that and move from there. Because remember, once we put them into our sales funnel, they need to be all at the same size. We need to make sure that all those things in our same funnel, our sales funnel, are absolutely right. So are our requirements right? Are our consultants right? Are our candidates right? Etc. Because we need to drive forward on there. What I want to hope to get at some point is objections, and objections of what's going on. So I've got to make sure that I am delivering objections, and delivering value so the client can object to it. So if you get an objection, don't panic. So if you're panicking, it's a problem. An objection is a good thing. An objection is a request for more information from the client. An objection is a request for more information. An objection is a fact that they don't understand what is actually happening at this moment in time. You've got to make sure that you cover that objection straight away. So usually I think if the objection comes up in the first 10 the 10 minutes, or an objection comes up in the fact find, I tend to ignore that objection. And why do I ignore that objection? Because if it's a true objection, the client will restate it. How many times have I spoke to a client and the client said, I've only got 5 minutes, I'm going into a meeting, and I suddenly ignore that objection and carry on talking? I know if he's going to a meeting, he's going to say, no, I'm generally going to a meeting at 2 o'clock. I can't afford to spend more time on this. Can I call you back? But if they ignore my objection and I carry on talking, I've sometimes found myself carrying on talking for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. So sometimes ignoring the objection, the first objection, is absolutely correct. Not every objection, but think about the objection you're ignoring, because if it's a true objection, they'll reinstate it, okay? You've got to be able to handle the objection, okay? And you handle it there and then. If it's a genuine, true objection, you've got to handle it there and then. So acknowledge the objection, and you either address it now or you park it. And what I mean by that, you could say, I understand that objection, Mr. Client, what you're talking about, this, and this, fully understand that. Let me just put that to one side, because I'll cover that a little bit later on when I talk about that. So you're going to push it away to one side, but ring it. Make sure you do come back to it, and make sure you say, right, the objection you talked about earlier on was this. So don't be shy, okay? Empathize with your client, but certainly don't be confrontation, okay? I always use the following method from there. There's lots of ways to handle objections. I really like the feel, felt, found, especially when I'm selling to a client, because I want to give the client an opportunity to understand. So I always use, I understand how you feel, Mr. Client. In fact, lots of clients I've dealt with in the past felt exactly the same way. And what they found was, once I started dealing with this type of situation, is how they cured the problem. So I use feel, felt, found constantly with my clients. And I find that way you start to use your real life scenarios. I understand how you feel, Mr. Client. In fact, I was working with a client last week that had the same type of issue. This is what I did to deal with that issue. And what they found is this. So all of a sudden, I've got a very good way of handling an objection, which brings in my value and creates value with my client constantly. Once I've got that, okay, I need to re-pitch my price and re-pitch the service that they want. I want them to get a close. If I can get a close, then I'm going to start to move into finishing off what I started. So closing is tightening the net, okay? So you've demonstrated if you have commitment or not with the client. You know if you have commitment with the client at this point, okay, because they should be able to close it. If you haven't commitment, they're still going to be arguing the toss over this and that. You need to look at that. You need to demonstrate your commitment to the client to make sure that you can deliver. And therefore, we need to set clear action points in a chronological order that the client will take up. You need to start to think and value your service. So have a value gauge. You've gone in and pitched everything. Have you come out retained, exclusive, or contingency? If you've only come out with contingency, is it because the client doesn't value you and doesn't value recruiters as a whole? Because when you walk away, you've got to be able to give your choice to work with the client or not. So when we started about having a plan right at the start of the recruitment process or start of the sales process, we've got to make sure that we've worked our plan. We've got to make sure that we've worked our plan properly to be able to deliver what we want and what we require. So I'm not filling just 2 out of 10 roles, I'm filling 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Therefore, I'm maximizing my time. I want to be able to walk away from clients that do not commit to me, but I need to be able to evaluate that thoroughly. And if you do that off a 10-minute sales call, then I don't know how you evaluate that thoroughly from there. That's desperation. So we need to make sure that you're looking for that win-win situation. So know your goals and know your walk-away points. Once you've agreed everything with the client, reconfirm it verbally and later in writing. As soon as I finish with a client, I will get something out to them as soon as possible in writing what that we have discussed and what we've agreed. If I decide to walk away, I'm going to walk away professionally. But again, I'm going to confirm that in writing. Remember what we said all the way through this process. If the client is offering you a job spec or offering that they have jobs to work, rather than taking it halfway through the fact find, now is the time to take the job spec, because now you have agreement. You've either walked away, so you're not going to waste that time taking the job spec, or you've now got an agreement. Now you need to take the job spec. And now you can use that job spec very, very simply, because you should have filled in probably at least 75% of the job spec during your fact find. You should know exactly what they need to be doing. So it won't take that long now to take the rest of the job spec properly. And understanding it all means that you've gained full commitment and full control. And that is the most important part of the sales process. If you are not in control and you do not have commitment with your client, I can almost guarantee you will do this job not once, but twice, if not 3 times, and then you'll potentially give up. That is a complete waste of your time, your energy, your focus, and is basically driving down your potential opportunity to take money. So you've got a decision now. Are you going to be that lazy recruiter that's poor or average, or are you going to be good at recruitment and brilliant at recruitment by actually taking and doing the right things to gain the proper commitment all the way through? So, to conclude, you've got to match your solution to the client's shopping list. You've got to link your service to the client's needs and light that fire. You've got to use features, advantages, and benefits to fan that fire and make that fire truly work. Your solution must cure the issues. So build up the issues during the fact find and then cure them during your sale. Use language to your advantage. Clients love it when you use their language. Stick to your plan. Once you've closed, shut up, let them come back to you. My fee is this, let them come back to you, and ensure you close with actions all the way through. So this is very old school recruitment, but with a new school broom. And I would say to anybody, look at those people who are brilliant at recruitment. Look at all the positive little things that they do all the way through that process, which is all about drawing the client in to want to work with them. And that is what this sale is all about. This sale can be done over the phone, it can be done over video, it can be done face-to-face, it can be done in a lit, it can be done absolutely anywhere, okay? The processes are the same. So I always say for those people who are really excellent at recruitment, they have this process mapped out. They have it ingrained in their brain. They have it ingrained, so when a client jumps from A to Z, you can jump down to B straight away. So you haven't missed anything. If you're on section C and he suddenly jumps to T, you can come straight back to D. What clients are great at doing is pulling you off your plan and away from your goals. You need to be structured enough to be able to go back to your plan, and will keep working your plan religiously. If you do that, you will find that you have a far more success rate. You'll have a better opportunity to make placements. And if you want to carry on swimming in the bloodbath of recruitment in that feeding frenzy and filling 2 out of 10 jobs, good luck to you. If you want to really start to improve your recruitment process, do the basics right every single time. Do it with passion and do it with pride, and create that value proposition to your client, which gives you the opportunity to either work with a great client or walk away from someone who does not value you. And if you think about that in a friendship circle, you think about that in a relationship circle, you walk away from people that you do not value and they do not value you. So why do we continue working with clients that do not value us? So create that value proposition and deliver that value proposition. So that's the end of today's course. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being on the course. Again, very high numbers. So I'd like to thank you all. If you've had any questions, feel free to fire some questions to me now whilst I can answer those questions. If there are no questions, then I'd like to wish you a happy Wednesday. You know, it's coming towards the end of the week. Let's hope it stops raining and the sunshine comes out again for the start of summer. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your time. It's been much appreciated.